Let's say you want to make your very own tabletop miniatures game and you would like to include or at least have available 3D printable miniatures for said game. So let's talk about some important things you need to consider when it comes to planning, designing, printing some of those miniatures for your game. I'm Jason, the creator of Fractured Colony over here, which is a miniature line designed for filament-based 3D printers, and of course Kalidasia, which some of the guys are hiding over here, and those are miniatures that were either designed on or produced on resin-based 3D printers, and even if the final products were pewter like this ship right here, it is fully capable of being printed on resin 3D printers. So let's start with the basics there, resin versus filament. So filament generally is better for larger, less detailed models like these larger tanks back here. And of course resin, well, they're a lot better for tiny little soldier guys like the little Krylon character right here. Now, fun note, I did have about 3 or 4 of them sitting up here originally, but I bumped them off the shelf onto the subwoofer below and I broke all of them. So I only have 1 left at the moment. But more will come later. And I say in general because these days, what filament can do, what resin can do, they're kind of overlapping more and more each day. There are people out there on the internet who are getting really good at using filament-based printers to produce high-quality 32mm scale character models, which normally is resin's territory. And of course, there are some large format resin printers out there, some medium-sized resin printers that can print, well, at least large chunks of vehicles like this. And one more note on the printers is that even though most players probably don't own both types of 3D printers, they likely have access to both types through friends and other members of the local gaming group. Now let's talk about one important principle when it comes to designing gaming miniatures, and that these little guys that we play with, they're not scale models. And what I mean by that is when you zoom in on them and look at them really big, like you see over here in Blender right now, this is the unposed version of the Krylon miniature I just showed off a little bit ago. What you're going to notice is that the small details like armor pieces, muscles, basically the size of the limbs, all these things are much larger than they would be if this was actually a scale miniature. And there's actually a couple good reasons for that. One is durability, because if the limbs were the proper size they were, you can kind of compare the size of the legs to what you see over here with the concept artwork, especially with some of the arms. The arms are much more beefier than they are as he's supposed to be within the context of the universe, and that's because they'd be so thin they would break off. But also, in order to make miniatures look cool, we want to be able to see the detail, both the kind of pieces that are kind of sticking out from the miniature and any sort of recesses or little lines between armor panels and things like that. So therefore, by making those details much larger than they would be in real life, they stand out, our eye sees them, and the miniature looks really awesome. Let's talk about some of the challenges when it comes to miniatures designed for filament-based 3D printers, and a lot of that revolves around support material. Surfaces that are in contact with support material often have a really ugly, messy finish to them that not only looks terrible, but it's also kind of difficult to glue together, and you really just don't want to see that on the finished miniature. Now, there are some tricks you can go ahead to hide that, because the archer right here, well, you really can't see any. And one of the ways I do that is, one, I hide those areas of support material faces underneath parts of the miniature you're not going to see, like inside the tread wells over here. But also, another way you can get around it is by not using a lot of support material. And in order to do that, you have to break up your miniature and make it a whole bunch of pieces. I forget exactly how many this kit is, but it's probably like 30 or so pieces to assemble. And there are certainly people out there who see a 30-piece miniature kit that's 3D printable, and they're like, oh, I don't want to do that because 3D printers should be magic. Other ways to deal with the bad-looking support faces, well, you can do a lot of sanding, and I mean a lot of sanding. Some materials sand better than others, but the typical PLA that the vast majority of people use when it comes to filament-based 3D printers, it doesn't really sand well. And if the support material is in funny spots, it's just kind of hard to sand small pockets of miniatures anyway. Now, there are other options for support material than just the standard kind of like a grid type things you're probably familiar with if you ever done any sort of filament-based printing. These days, there are tree supports, which is something that's becoming more and more common. They're kind of like things you might see in a resin 3D printer, and in fact, one of the kits for Fractured Colony does highly recommend tree supports. And that would be this miniature right here, the Norman class battle armor, which stands, oh, I don't know, about that tall, and it's probably the closest thing I have in the Fractured Colony miniature line to kind of a standard scale, in this case a little bit larger scale, kind of standard gaming miniature, human-ish looking thing. Of course, it's an oversized piece of battle armor. Now, one thing I have seen online, but I haven't personally tried, is that people have been actually using resin slicer programs to design support material and then printing those models with the attached support material that's custom designed in the resin slicer out on filament-based 3D printers. So if you have something more like a human type model, like I see here with the Norman class battle armor, maybe you want to consider experimenting with that kind of a thing, but I haven't personally tried it yet. Now, there are a few other challenges with filament-based miniatures other than just the support material problems. One is a concept you've probably heard of called elephant's foot. Essentially, if you think about when you're printing up layer by layer, the top layers are just slowly pushing just a little bit down in the bottom layers, and it tends to cause the bottom layer or two of the print to be just a tiny bit bigger than it really should be. And it seems like you wouldn't think that's going to be a big issue, but then you do something like I had with the Archer here and its missile pods. Originally, the ends of the missile pods here were printed vertically, so you kind of think the launch tubes would be pointing up on your 3D printer, where the back piece here, which is the bulk of the missile tube body, was printed horizontally, so the missile tubes are pointing off to the right or the front or however I had them aligned, which actually caused a little bit of elephant's foot on the end caps of the missile tubes, and the pieces did not match up correctly even though they were the correct size within the 3D modeling program. So what I ended up having to do is essentially also print the missile bodies in a vertical position as well, because that way they would have the same elephant's foot problem. In fact, they're printed on the 3D printer like this. So therefore, the bottom, where it should also have elephant's foot, is going to align with any sort of elephant's foot errors with the missile end cap, and they should match a lot closer than if they were in different orientations. Fun things to think about. And another thing you have to think about when it comes to the filament-based printers is they are approximately precise down to about 0.5 millimeters, give or take a little bit depending on settings, as well as the nozzle diameter you're using, and that's kind of a side effect of how the slicer program translates the 3D model into the tooling pass that the printer is going to actually take. And now that may not seem like a big deal because 0.5 millimeters is really tiny, but if you want to create pieces that precisely interlock, it's going to be a challenge. So for example, here with the Snarl Hog, each of these tires, there's a little square nub on the inside that they attach to, and there's a little rectangle keyway that you can stick the wheel onto. And the challenge is that I can't get the little nub and the rectangle key to be exactly the same size because of that little bit of approximate precision, and therefore it's impossible, not impossible, but it's very difficult to really get a reliable tight fit between those two pieces. So I end up having to make the keyway a little bit larger than it needs to be, and therefore there's a little bit of flexibility the assembler of the miniature has to deal with. So let's go back to resin miniatures. Now I have two main dimensional limits I use when it comes to designing my miniatures, and that is raised details, things like gun barrels, armor panels, any sort of little sensors, lights, targeting things, anything that sticks out of the area of the miniature around it. I tend to limit those to maybe about 1 millimeter at the smallest and not too much smaller than that. When it comes to etch details, like lines between armor panels or actually anything that's kind of cut into the miniature, I try to keep those no smaller than 0.5 millimeters. Now those dimensions may seem kind of large when you take a look at the specs of some of the popular resin 3D printers that are currently on the market, and the pixel size is freaking tiny, talking about 14 by 19 micrometers. But the reality is, because the actual level of detail you're going to get from a resin 3D printer is dictated more by the printer settings, the type of resin, the conditions that the printer is in, or the environmental conditions the printer is currently existing in. Those kind of things are going to have much more impact on the level of detail you can get out of your printer than the actual resolution of the LCD screen itself. So we're talking about things like layer cure time, the resin formulation, the air temperature, humidity levels, as also how dirty your FEP screen is. Things like that are going to affect the level of detail much more so than simply the quality of your 3D printer. So you got to factor those kind of things in when designing miniatures for resin printers. Now there are 3 paths you can choose to take. And one path you can take is actually to manufacture your own miniatures using resin 3D printers. Now, with this type of printer, they're kind of fast enough to produce decent quantities of miniatures. Of course, traditional manufacturing methods are most likely going to be faster, but they're also going to be more complex to set up. And if you're going to go down this route, though, you want to make sure you have total control over the production chain, or at least you know exactly what the production chain is going to be, and you know that the people who are operating it are competent enough to produce your miniatures correctly, because that's the only way you're going to get an advantage with this method. And what that advantage is, if you do know the printer, you know the settings that you're going to be using to print the miniatures, you know the resin, and of course you know, I'll have a decent idea of what the conditions the printer is going to be in, you can push the details of your miniature a fair bit further and get something a little bit higher quality than the numbers I just mentioned a little bit ago. And then workflow number 2 would be kind of take the same approach. We have a nice, super high resolution miniature designed, and basically look at your customers like, well, it's your problem to try to get them to print out good enough. I mean, it can kind of work. The reality is, at least at this time that I'm recording the video, most of the people that have resin 3D printers understand there's a fair bit of trial and error there. And if they want to go ahead and try to print out a super high quality miniature and make it look as awesome as some of the demo photos, there's going to be a little bit of trial and error on their part, and they kind of know that going into it. And then finally, you can kind of plan for the worst case scenario and maximum compatibility by constraining yourself to having a little bit larger details than maybe you would like, but you can still get a pretty darn good looking miniature with those restrictions. But anyway, that is going to give you a decent overview of where to start when it comes to thinking about 3D printable miniatures for your tabletop miniatures game, because if you are working on a relatively small game or a brand new project, it's not a bad idea to go down this route. There's a lot of advantages to it, and later on, if you do end up making a decent amount of money, you could look at going ahead and starting to expand into maybe resin, pewter, or plastic 3D miniatures. Just make sure you do it in a way that doesn't completely tick off your existing fan base, because that's not a good thing either. So with that, oh, now let me just say, so you're probably wondering, Jason, weren't you making a game with these guys? And I'm kind of scribbling notes down here every now and then. I'll be honest with you, the Fractured Colony stuff has been a bit more of a priority. But I was trying to figure out how I wanted to make this be a single player tabletop game, and I've got some ideas finally in my head about what I'm thinking about how the mechanics are going to work. So now I'm going to get back to working on this ground combat Kalidasia game, so hopefully we'll be seeing a little bit more about that in the not too distant future. So with that, thank you guys all for watching. Once again, I'm Jason, the creator of the Tabletop Battlefield, Fractured Colony, and the Kalidasia universe. And I will see you guys all next time.